Namaskar. Welcome to Global Insights episode 321. Please click on the like button on this program. Today is Monday, the 14th of March, and here are the main points. In the Russia-Ukraine-Europe developments, Russia and Ukraine discussions continue as an attack on base close to Poland kills many. Ukraine leaders insist that the next phase of discussions should be directly between Putin and Zelensky. Israel, Russia, Ukraine mediation efforts continue, and Jerusalem could emerge as one of the venues for negotiations and ceasefire. Bennett clarifies that his Russia visit was to understand Russia's position. NATO membership is not relevant or on the agenda, reasserts Jens Stoltenberg. Sridharji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel, sir. How are you doing?
Namaskar. Good morning to everybody. And I'm doing fine, sir. You know, the war fatigue has not taken over us, and the COVID is back on the agenda. So plenty of excitement around the world.
So now the third round of talks, Ukraine is suggesting that it be done mano a mano. And I think Russia is not going to accept that, just my gut feeling. Your thoughts on how things are unfolding, sir?
I think my thoughts are, I think there is now clear clarity based on what we have heard from both Russian side as well as from Mr. Bennett. And I don't think Zelensky is prepared to concede or accept. The position is very clear from the Russian side, which is namely acceptance of Crimea, make it legitimate, it's part of Russia, recognize the eastern provinces in the Donbass region as independent and give them the freedom of right and choice, denuclearize, do not have an army, and sign a commitment that you will never join any European federation, let alone NATO. So these are the conditions that they have very clearly placed. Otherwise, they will fight to achieve their objective, is what Vladimir Putin seems to have told, Mr. Bennett and Naftali Bennett. And Naftali has communicated that. And Naftali has also stated, I never told Ukraine to surrender. All I just said is that, let's have a conversation. So there's going to be some solution, I believe, around that, because this meaningless thing will not go on. And let us hope that for the sake of everybody, this is resolved.
And Russia seeks military equipment and other aid from China with sanctions causing restrictions. Vladimir Putin wants attempts to prevent Russian exports of oil, gas, and fertilizers would have serious consequences. Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov says that he traveled to Ukraine. This is a surprise, Sridharji. Chechens have been fighting for their own separate homeland for a long time. Russia, brutally suppressed that. Now, this is an interesting development.
This gentleman is hoisted by Russia. His father was hoisted, and his father was killed in an assassination. He was young to take over. There was a surrogate, and then this gentleman took over. Subsequent to that, when he turned 30, is considered despotic and runs the regime in a very oppressive manner, which is obviously with the support of Russia. There were a lot of at least from the independent or the so-called independent media, as well as from the Ukraine side, the Chechen mercenaries were sent to assassinate, and all of them were taken out by the Ukraine bodyguards or forces supporting Zelensky. So it's very interesting that this gentleman has made a statement that he did travel to Ukraine. He did travel to Ukraine and he was there. So it's very interesting in that specific context, Sriji.
And Russian default no longer improbable, but no cause for global financial crisis, says the International Monetary Federation. Russian finance minister confirms that close to $430 billion of Russian reserves are frozen. The balance of the reserves in gold and Chinese holdings feasible for access if China extends credit support. If I remember correctly, Sridharji, the Chinese consortium AIIB refused to give energy credits to Russia a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely correct. We reported that the AIIB has, looking at the situation, has stopped further credits both to Belarus as well as to Russia as a result of the war. The number there is 300 billion. They have a $640 billion reserves, of which $300 billion has been frozen by the central banks. They have no access to that capital. The rest of the $340 billion is in the form of gold and other aspects linked to Chinese renminbi because of the exports that Russia makes to China. Now, there has been an attempt to secure credit. This is what the Western media, this is what Russia, this is what the general media is reporting. As we got into the show, Russia has basically disowned the claim, saying that it is not asking for any credit from China, nor it is asking for any other types of money that is required for them to acquire arms. Just on the earlier segment, it's very important that suddenly Russia is realizing that it cannot move any of its goods. Most important, fertilizers, oil, commodities, and gas. The reason I mentioned fertilizers is India is one of the largest exporters of fertilizers, and Indian farming apparently is reliant on these fertilizers coming from Russia. It's interesting, some kind of blockade is going on, so it's going to be, next few days will unravel as to how this takes shape.
And many border countries alarmed by escalation such as Latvia, Lithuania, Poland is ready to defend themselves should war escalate. Sridharji, we have also seen a lot of NATO troop movements in these areas, isn't it?
It is. We have seen a tremendous number of, as a result of the response force of NATO being activated. NATO has very categorically, explicitly stated that for the first time, the response force has been activated, and there is both defensive and offensive positions in those adjacent regions that you alluded to. The other notable point is that 400 million euros worth of defense and other supplies are have been approved by EU in a very surprise move. And I think this is on top of the $300 billion worth of aid that $300 million worth of equipment and machinery and defense-related equipment that is being supplied by United States.
Please continue, sir. I'm so sorry about it. We are continuing back. I can't explain what happened. It's just my computer completely rebooted. Please continue, sir. We were on talking about Russia's exports frozen to India and so on and so forth, sir.
Right. I think the point that, just getting back to the earlier point, which I was alluding to, is that Russia is one of the largest exporters of fertilizers to India. So there are three areas he is feeling the impact of the sanctions and also probably the blockade. And he's made it very clear, if there is any further attempt to block either fertilizers, oil, and gas, the countries which are implementing the sanctions would face significant consequences. This is his explicit statement. He's obviously frustrated that is beginning to happen. And also there is pressure from the United States and some of these other nations not to extend any credit and not to provide any leverage to China. They have issued this statement to China. Do not provide any leverage. Do not give him any credits against exports, because he's going to abuse it. So he is feeling the pinch. It'd be interesting to see how he responds. And it's also interesting that the IMF has made a statement that Russia is going to default because there is not enough liquidity. There are also rumors that they have only about 7 days and they could be bankrupt. So there is an imminent default of Russia on its bond obligations. Whether it would have consequences, the IMF has stated the consequences will be almost insignificant or redundant. And that's a very telling point on the back of two major financial institutions quitting Russia last week.
And the EU says that it would provide up to 450 million euros for armed deliveries to Ukraine, a historic precedent as it embraces post-war Ukraine. Right now, the application of Ukraine in EU is still pending, isn't it, Sridharji?
The application of EU is still pending. The NATO point of it, which has been pending since 2004, as you saw, NATO's Jens Stoltenberg has made it very clear It's unlikely to be taken up, and it is not an important consideration for NATO at the moment.
And in US news, US to send more weapons to Ukraine after Biden authorization. Remember that we had talked about this 13.9 billion authorized, 6 billion of that for arms, 3.9 towards rehabilitation of Ukraine, and the other 3 billion, I forget what it is, a lot of money, a lot of taxpayer money clearly being done without telling any of us how they are going to spend it. Sridharji, I think you need to probably have a standalone program on this new $1.5 trillion budget that Biden administration has got it passed. It's just happening in a blink of an eyelid, sir. 1.5 trillion.
Well, no, I think that we'll wait for the US section. First on this, it's very unusual. We touched on this earlier. Very, very unusual for EU to send money in the form of or support arms to a non-EU and a non-NATO nation. It is a very important precedent signifying that this war could spill into Europe at any given point in time, most notably after the attack close to the Polish border. It's also interesting that United States continues to lift and pump more arms on top of the $13.9 billion aid that was sanctioned. With regard to this 1.5 trillion, we'll do a separate 10 minutes. We'll give you the lineup. We'll also give you a lineup of the historic precedents or historic calculations of all the money that United States has pumped by borrowing from the market.
And White House spokesperson says that NATO will attack with full force if Russia attacks. US warns China of consequences if it evades sanctions and supports Russia. According to US officials, Russia has asked China for military help. This is where the sticking point is. How do you think China is going to react, Sridharji?
There is a growing sense of concern in China that China doesn't want to get entangled in any way, notwithstanding the fact any consequences that flow from violating the sanctions it would have on China. China has a very large domestic economy now relative to what they were 10 years ago. They have very specific trading partners in Asia. China is not Russia. So though they are making a personal case, this is United States, especially the National Security Advisor, Deputy National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan. He was making the case, and he was making it very clear to the Chinese: please, do not supply arms, and do not, give them cash credit for them to illegally secure arms. If you do so, it has significant consequences. The point is, unless and until China introspects and decides not to become part of this war, there's no reason why China may not heed to Russia's request. Recall, both Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin met on the back of the Beijing Winter Olympics. They agreed to sign and follow each other and form a partnership to take on what they call as the Western hegemony.
And Pelosi claims government spending is reducing government debt and not causing inflation, contrary to market views. Suddenly, Pelosi has now become an economics expert, Sridharji?
That's exactly. I was waiting for this item, which is namely to say, so it's like, law of diminishing returns. You pump more money, no problem. It's not that. It is not our money that is causing the problem, because it is redistribution of wealth. So therefore, the money is going to the right people. The problem now that the Democratic Party is now propagating is it is Putin who is causing you a pain at the gas stations. This is the message that is coming out. Now, they're also saying that there is inflation is okay. What you are hearing from the markets and what I have seen based on the data is we are not too far within the next couple of months to hit a double-digit inflation rate, which we have not seen. Double-digit inflation rate. We are at 8% right now. And with all the supply chain issues with with asymmetric demand supply issues, with all these different sanctions, and with energy issues, we really have a problem on our hands in the United States, Sriji.
And Pfizer CEO says the world may need yearly booster shots to keep the COVID-19 pandemic at bay as US cases rise to 81 million plus deaths at 993,811, and active cases have come down to 24,109,763. Very high number. 1 in 4 US citizens have now been inflicted at one point or the other with COVID, right, sir? 81 million is 1 in 4.
1 in 4.
US, yeah, go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
No, finish your thoughts that you are asking.
So US vaccinates 557 million doses. 217 million are fully vaccinated. So the fully vaccinated percentage is still at only 65%, which means 2 in 3 are vaccinated, 1 in 3 is not. They are refusing to get vaccinated. If you go to rural US, people keep telling, oh, no, there are going to be other consequences because of this. It could be ignorance. It could also be some fear. We don't know. Side effects probably. We don't know. But Sridharji, US has a self-inflicted wound. They allowed millions in without checking for COVID. And that is keeping this thing alive. And for some reason, this Biden administration refuses to admit it. They have not even come out with a one-line statement saying so many came in and so many were, this is where they are housed and these are where the hot spots are, because you can immediately do a correlation, sir.
I think Vladimir Putin, in more than many ways, has helped Biden administration to get out of jail on a number of issues. This is one of those issues. There's issues going on around the DHS. There's issues going on around the fast tracking of people. There's issues going on around security of the people who have been let in. There's issues going on around people with vaccinated, people with COVID being allowed in, etc. Sriji. So, and then of course, this mismanagement around the budgets. We have not talked on election fraud. At least 2 states have propped up. So Vladimir Putin has been a very good distraction on many of these issues. So I think you have hit the nail. The point that we wanted to make here is United States will have 1 million deaths. 1 million deaths. Probably we need to go back to World War II or a Great Plague to look at the numbers. 1 million deaths in a short span of time. As Sri pointed out, we have toggled between 20 to 25 million active cases, consistently, which we have been reporting for the last 8 or 9 months. Then on the other point that Sriji pointed out, we were supposed to cross in October, November last year, 70% fully vaccinated. We are in March 2022, only 65.7% vaccinated. Why? Because there has not been active engagement and communication. Why? Because we kept on, you do you do dose 1, you do dose 2, you do booster. Now today Pfizer says, no, you need to have 4th booster or 4th dose for you, and it has to be every year for you to take care of. So there is a distrust amongst people, whether this is going to be solved or whether they're going to, continue to vaccinate us. And should they choose to do so, what is the consequence of this continuous and perpetual vaccination? By the way, if you are a United States, citizen or a resident, we still have to take our annual flu vaccines over and above this. Okay, there is no escape from our flu vaccines either. This is tremendous challenge for many who live in the United States.
Sridharji, personal experience about flu vaccines. Every time I took the flu vaccine are the years I felt sick. So I have stopped taking it 10, 15 years ago, sir. It's optional. I don't take it. I'm happy. I don't get the flu. But again, I don't interact much. I'm interacting mostly online. And except for today's snafu, more or less I'm able to connect with our audiences. Thank God for that. But this is just my personal experience, sir. I don't know how your experience has been taking flu shots. It always flattens me for 5-6 days if I take the shot. Otherwise, I seem to be okay. I don't know why.
It's always a reaction, sir. So You are, I think, stay healthy and be safe, and you are lucky, and you be that way, sir. So stay away from. Unfortunately, my health conditions mitigate. I have to take the flu vaccines, and as you rightly said, we all face, if not every year, every other year, we face the consequences of it.
And US stock market futures rise as markets monitor Russia-Ukraine war. Brent drops to $110 a barrel, and the US 10-year bonds cross 2% mark and are at 2.06%. Sir, I don't remember the 10-year bonds crossing 2% in a long, long time, Sridharji.
Long time. Many moons ago, we were at
Yeah,
0.43 basis points, Sriji.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, the last time it crossed two was in 2019, when two step-up increments happened under Jerome Powell, and the President, Mr. Trump, really took to the press and tiraded, and that had a small consequences in the markets. Then the rates were brought down, and then rest is history. And then, of course, 2020 first quarter, we had the COVID, and the rates fell at that point of time to 0.43, and we were at that rate for a long time, and then we slowly made our way up, and now we are at, we were contemplating in 2021 in the last quarter whether we would hit 2%. Lo and behold, we somehow survived. I think now we have crossed, which is telling the market that there is an imminent interest rate hike, because inflation has not gone down despite all these issues confronting the world.
And in Asia news, Shanghai and Shenzhen witnessed spikes in COVID cases and are on the verge of a shutdown. Hong Kong cases also surpassed 32,000. Viewers, those of you who don't know this, it's right across Shenzhen. Hong Kong and Shenzhen are more or less, separated by a few kilometers. You cross a bridge and you are in Shenzhen. So anything that happens in Shenzhen is going to have a spillover in Hong Kong. This is the next wave from the looks of it. Sridharji, what do we know about this wave?
I think it's very little, as you rightly pointed out. It's probable that the cases are moving from Hong Kong into Shenzhen. It's a small, I think 14 or 16 million is the population. The cases were about few hundred. Now, today, apparently, it has crossed 3,000 in number. So the Chinese authorities have taken extra precaution and basically are on the verge of shutdown. And that's certainly clearly sent markets tumbling in China as well as in Hong Kong. Markets were down about 5% today. So Hong Kong remains an issue. The spillover is now beginning to be seen. There are talks of another variant, but let's wait and see before we jump the gun. Maybe by the time we get to the next show, we will know about this variant. Always when they announce these variants, they tell you that it is more fatalistic than the earlier one. It is 40, 60 times, what you call combative in terms of the impact from the virus. But let's wait and see.
And Taiwanese president calls for an all-out defense strategy in the event of war, and experts opine that the defense of Taiwan would be different. Mike Pompeo warns Biden administration that China is watching US weakness in Ukraine while eyeing Taiwan. Sridharji, I have something to add to what you're saying. Please share your thoughts, sir.
I think basically Taiwan is very much on the radar. And Taiwan lost one of their what you call the stealth planes. This is the second crash that has happened. Whether it is a result of combat or whether it's a crash, we don't know. But Taiwan is being advised very actively by a number of independent so-called experts or experts in the respective domains. Mike Pompeo has been very vocal that it requires an explicit security guarantee, not ambiguity, from United States. But Taiwan also seems to be preparing itself adequately. The question, therefore, is how much China is prepared to risk based on what they are seeing remains a question mark. But this is very much on the radar, sir.
And Japan urges crypto exchanges to act in line with sanctions against Russia. Many Russian travelers across Asia are stranded with little access to cash and restrictions. Sridharji, regarding crypto exchanges like Coinbase and so on and so forth, all these are they profitable, sir? First off,
There are two ways to answer your question. There's no transparent accounting. There is no public accountability for any of these exchanges except for Coin, which is in the. So many of them are making money. Many of them don't pay taxes. Many of them are in off-tax havens. So they are privately funded, and they are they're making money off those transactions. They're privately funded. So the question of profitability, are they profitable? In my humble view, they are profitable. Not all. We talked about this in one of the crypto shows that we did. When you take away, there are about 8,000 of these coins, and there's a umpteen number of exchanges. About 5, 6, 7, not more than 10 of them have active volume, and they are profitable. Rest of them are in for the game with the hope that funding will continue and they can sustain. That's the way it is. But there are two important observations as a result of this. One, Japan is taking a very, very, very active look at all these travelers, because Japan and Korea are two of the venues where you have these exchanges where there is possibly Russian wallets, and Russians are desperate who are overseas because they have no access to MasterCard Visa payment system. Recall, MasterCard Visa payment systems are cut off from the checking accounts of the Russian consumers who have accounts in Russian banks. So there's desperation. There's also desperation in New York. People are trying to sell their properties like a fire sale and leave United States.
United States or Russia, sir?
United States, sir. These are people in United States who are trying to sell some of their properties, make cash, and leave.
To leave for where, sir?
Go back to Russia, or go back to wherever an alternative venue where they're accepted. Belarus, maybe. They don't have access. Sanctions are having an impact on their ability to access transactions.
Well, the other interesting thing I'm hearing, sir, and I don't know how true this is that any American business that is leaving leaving Russia, the property that they have built all this stuff is being confiscated by the Russians also. So essentially, when, let's say, normalcy returns, say Morgan Stanley had a building in Moscow, no guarantee that they're going to be having it there when they go back. It's not shuttered. We don't know. This is what I'm hearing, sir. I don't know if there is any truth in this or not.
No, there is substantial truth in what you have stated. I myself have been with 3 banks, was with 3 banks. We take a cautious approach in the country risk of some of these places has a very high risk profile. There's a constant review with the government. So many of the barring small manufacturing complexes, which is established with some kind of a joint venture between the local partner and the US investors, many of them you will observe, have leased properties or have some kind of mechanism by which they can exit without a significant consequences on the balance sheet, especially properties of the financial institution, of the leading industrial complexes.
And newly elected South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol is expected to take a hardline stance against North Korea and have policies more aligned with the West. South Korea and global media are reporting that North Korea could launch the largest intercontinental ballistic missile as yet, escalating tensions in the Korean peninsula. Sridharji, this change in leadership in South Korea, because it's a democracy, I think life goes on. I mean, you may have a little bit of shift from center to left or center to right, but I don't think South Korea is going to overnight change its policy, is it?
They're expecting this trilateral agreement, which has been stalled between South Korea, Japan, and United States. Mr. Kishida spoke with the South Korean president on Friday. Today is Monday. And Mr. Yoon has expressed his desire to have a much more open and direct partnership with US, and he also wants to be more what you call responsive with regards to the provocative policies of the North Korean North Korean leader. North Korean leader has been, whereas the Moon Jae has been trying to see whether he can have a dialogue, and he was not in favor of this trilateral agreement. South Korea-Japan tensions remained, but this change in leadership in South Korea may augur well in terms of the broader collaboration between US, Korea, and Japan, especially in the Korean Peninsula, as well as in that upper stretches of the Taiwan Strait.
And in West Asia news, Iranian Erbil attack, a preview of things to come after Iranian Revolutionary Guard takes responsibility and says that it is in response to Israeli drone attack. US working to help Iraq to get missile defense capabilities for defense against drone and rocket attacks. Sridharji, the Iran-US nuclear talks with the West, that's one side. Now, Iran on its own goes and attacks something in Iraq, which is actually very close to the US consulate. I think it is US consulate or US property. Let's make it more generic. How does Iran expect US to come back and sit on a negotiating table, Sridharji?
It's a very fascinating, what you call discretionary actions that they are going on. This is the Iranian Republican Revolutionary Guard, IRGC. This is the group that has claimed responsibility. Probably it's the rebels. Again, this is happening in Ibril, which is in Tikrit, or the Kurd areas. So there is those tensions in that region between, if we all remember that there is some kind of independent federal structure that prevails between Iraq and that specific, the Kurdish region. So this is again, the Shias trying to exert the influence, whether they are ignored by some other people, we don't know. And they do not want a US security buffer, and they want US to leave, very similar to what US did in the mainland Iraq.
And in India news, trade and free trade agreement discussions with Mexico, Colombia, and Australia are undeterred by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. India is apparently edging closer to setting up an alternate payment system to continue to trade with a sanctions hit Russia. I think rupee-ruble trade is being talked about quite a bit, Sridharji, which means that if Russia needs something from India, it will pay for it in rupees, and if India needs something from Russia, it will pay for it in rubles. How realistic is this, sir? And is Uncle Sam going to sit and watch this?
Well, firstly, I think they can do that if there is a bank-to-bank communication, and if there is a bank-to-bank ledger-based payment transfers which bypasses any payment system. So they can do that. So as you said, it's a India ruble account. Apparently, India shortlisted 2 banks. I think I'm told. The facts needs to be validated. UCO Bank and State Bank of India to conduct this transaction. They are extremely concerned about fertilizers. India is reliant on fertilizers from Russia, and agriculture has been one of the hot topics in India, as you all are aware. And the farming community needs those fertilizers. So how this is going to play out, and India is very brave and bold to say they will break the sanctions and they will make sure that their supply continues and they continue to make a payment. This is the reason why, if you go back to the earlier segments that we talked about, Vladimir is raising questions around nations trying to create a blockade on three areas: oil, gas, and fertilizers, which is a big source of income to them. Next probably is coming is wheat. So these are very, very big areas for Russia, and you can see India taking extraordinary steps. I don't know what US is going to do, what the world is going to do, sir. I think India has been taking a very different approach. I won't use the word strange, very different approach. And, there could be some consequences coming out of it. I'm sure India has factored that in.
And viewers, I'm going to ask you to go back and look at a video I put out yesterday. It's just a 5-minute video. And the first part of that video deals with what happened in the Quad meeting that took place on the 5th of March. And Biden was allegedly asking Prime Minister Modi to censor Russia in the Quad meeting. And Modi just essentially said, Quad is for Indo-Pacific matters. And he didn't want to say yes or no, but he said effectively shut the door on talking about Russia in a Quad meeting. So there are these are all indirect ways in which the US is trying to arm twist India, I think. So there is going to be some consequences. So we have to wait and see how this plays out. Interestingly, India has now sort of hinted to US that even if you don't want to come to our help, should there be a conflict with Russia, we think we have an alternate plan. I'm reading between the lines here. I have no basis for saying this, but for Modi to stand up to Biden at a time when US is really breathing down the necks of everybody, including the other two Quad partners. For Modi to take that stand is extremely brave, but he knows something that perhaps the others don't know. And I want you all to use your imagination and look back at what happened last week in Pakistan, and you will know what I'm talking about. Let's move on. I don't want to dwell on this too much because I don't have any facts. I'm just connecting dots. Sridharji, I'll give you a chance to respond to what I just said, and then we can go on to the next news item, sir.
Well, I think it's not just, we covered this, I think, if you recall, last week. Besides your program, both Japan and Australia made a call. Mr. Kishida made a call, not last Friday, but the Friday prior. He made a call to Prime Minister Modi on asking him to support the resolution at the United Nations and take a stand. Scott Morrison, the Australian Prime Minister, called and asked Modi to take a stand. In both instances, they abstained. And what happened in that Quad meeting, we all know. It's very well, to some extent, the snippets of information has come out. India has taken a very different position. We have covered this in, again, Global Insights. When you look at the relative volume of trade between India and Russia, relative to the other trading partners that India trades with, especially the top 5 trading partners, Russia is the 28th trading partner, I am told, in the long list of people. But it's a very strange position India has taken. Probably Modi ji knows what he's doing.
Indian External Affairs Minister to make a statement to both houses of parliament on Tuesday on the Russia-Ukraine war and the rescue efforts. I think this is probably one of the first statements that India is officially making through its External Affairs Minister on what happened in this thus far. It's going to be interesting. I urge everyone to watch this, and I'll let you have the last word, Sridharji. But before that, viewers, we are going to be back in about 90 minutes with Abhijit on Ask Abhijit. And we're going to talk about Kashmir Files, his impressions on what he thought the movie was. And that's just an aside. Sridharji, over to you, sir.
No, I think that your observations is the first statement. The whole focus has been around the rescue operations. And probably he will also issue a statement as it relates to how India is preparing itself with regard to the strategic partnership with Russia and the consequences of the sanctions, and how it plans to live and deal with the global community as it adopts this two-pronged approach of doing business with Russia, but at the same time being in global platforms with many of the Western nations.
Thank you very much, Sridharji. And as always, we'll be back on Wednesday. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And do not forget to click on the bell button. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.